Hello everyone and welcome to Forever Rugby and Forever Sports for today's preview as the Stormers enter into the Super Rugby Unlocked fray as they face the Lions this weekend in their opening clash. Obviously the Lions went down just to the Sharks last weekend, what was a very close game and sort of a game that summed up where rugby currently is in South Africa. As we eagerly await to hear what is going to happen with regards to the Springboks participation in the Rugby Championship, there was a report yesterday that said that we're not going to be participating in the championship and that they're pulled out officially. And that will all hopefully be confirmed later today. But we just want to look at the Super Rugby Unlocked this weekend, and with a focus at the moment on the Stormers versus the Lions. Now, if you look at last weekend, in terms of the Lions game, the reason I said it kind of reflected where rugby is that, you know, it's sloppy, and it's sloppy, it's disjointed, and it's probably a little bit underwhelming, which is all because, you know, of the break, and we're still trying to make that breakthrough where we finally start playing the type of rugby that we'd like to see. You know, we finally start playing, you know, top quality rugby and rugby that is good enough to warrant selecting Springbok squad, which is the reason why they are potentially not going to play in the Rugby Championship, because they're just saying, given the lack of preparation, given the lack of rugby, we're just not playing at a standard that is acceptable for Test rugby. And yeah, so I think that's why, you know, as I said last week, I said last weekend was probably the last weekend we can kind of sort of acknowledge that kind of rugby. And now we need to start seeing the type of rugby that we are used to seeing and that we come to expect for sort of Super Rugby standards, or Currie Cup really, which is basically what this is. So before we get any further into the Stormers versus the Lions themselves, both announced their teams and stuff like that. Some very exciting players to look out for. Please do consider subscribing. Bottom right-hand corner, we've hit 100 subscribers, so thank you everybody who's showing their support. Please do continue subscribe to the channel so we can try and hit some more marks and try and grow the channel in general. So thank you everybody who's already subscribed, and please do consider subscribing. Smash like and feel free to share this with any friends and people that you might think might be interested in this. So let's get stuck into this weekend. So the game start is the last game of the weekend. It is at Newlands tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully nice conditions for running rugby, and you know the Lions have the edge in that they've played an extra 80 minutes that the Stormers haven't. But on the other hand, Stormers have had an extra week to, you know, refine things, and you know, if anybody was carrying any sort of knocks from the first two games, which a lot of people had, we saw that the Bulls had to rest Dwayne Vermeulen and didn't risk playing couple of their players because they were sort of carrying a lot of niggles. And I think that's just another consequence of the layoff. The fact that players hadn't played in such a long time, that their bodies just aren't quite used to taking the contact yet. And this is the reason why so many players are picking up small sort of niggles. So if we look at the first Stormers team of the season, it's a very, very strong team. And if you look at that, you know, you're looking at four Springboks within the pack, and an all Springbok front row, and that is where they're going to set up a platform for dominance. And the Lions are going to have a very tough time up front to try and deal with the likes of Stephen Kitsop, Bongi Mbonambi, and Frans Malherbe. I mean, that is an all Springbok front row. You know, Bongi Mbonambi is arguably joint best hooker in the country at the moment with Malcolm Marx, and you know, made it to the the World Cup final. Stephen Kitsop is just getting better and better. He's becoming much better in open play, but scrum time is where he does dominate. And Palusari is going to have a very tough time this weekend trying to sort of deal with that. Just like Frans Malherbe is going to pose a big threat to Steve Satoye, who's actually stood up quite well last weekend against Thomas Satoye. So a very good front row. Two very big locks in Salman Murat and Jada Schikkeling, both sort of knocking on the door of Springboks. And I think Salman Murat will be a Springbok eventually. I think that's one of those things that will happen. And you look at that loose trio, and you know, Joano Augustus is physical and big. Ernst van Rijn as well, you know, nice big ball carrier. And then Siya Kolisi captains the side. And Kolisi looked very good in the Springbok showdown. And he's just somebody who's just matured so much in the last couple of years. And I think, you know, he's always been quite an exciting player, a player that's quite good with ball in hand. But, you know, I think his work rate's improved a lot. I mean, he's always been a hard worker, but I think, you know, he started hitting a lot more rucks and started getting, you know, his defense has come a long way as well in recent years. And he's just playing some very good rugby. And he said that the Stormers have a point to prove. You know, he said that they've always let their fans down when it comes to Super Rugby. And he's quite right. It's a squad that has always been so good that they've always just underperformed. And it was a bit of a weird situation where they just couldn't sort of break the duck. They couldn't get over that sort of underperforming. And whether it was up to do with Aztecia or just, for whatever reason, they could never really kick on. But now is a chance, I mean, their best chance ever to get a Super Rugby sort of trophy title. And a lot's going to come down to the halfback pairing because you've got Herschel Yankees, who forced his way into the World Cup squad and played in the final, who will partner Damien Willemse. And Willemse especially has a lot to prove because 2 weeks ago when he played in that Springbok showdown, Alton Yankees outclassed him. It is as simple as that. He had an opportunity to sort of stake claim for the number 10 shirt, and he didn't for the Boks, and didn't really do it. And Alton Yankees was quite comfortably outplayed him. So Saturday is a big day for Damien Willemse, where he can once again try and prove that he can stake a claim for the number 10 Springbok jersey. And I think the big thing for him is that we need to see him relax a little bit more. It almost felt like he was sort of trying to, he was almost trying to play outplay himself, really. He was so desperate to try and prove a point that he was almost trying too hard, and it just wasn't quite coming off for him. So I think the important thing for Damien Willemse this weekend is to just sort of relax a little bit and let his natural game come through. He's such an exciting player with ball in hand, and we see what he can do with a bit of space. So I still wonder if number 10 is the best option for him. I do think that he favors for a bit more space and a bit more of a sort of attacking sense, that he gets at fullback or he could get at centre. But they are backing him at 10. The wings, lots of pace there with Leon Lanzas and Sergio Peterson. Obviously no Sanatla at the moment due to injury. And a decent midfield pairing of Rikus Pretorius and Dan du Plessis. Rikus Pretorius is a very good and young up-and-coming talent. Obviously played for the Junior Springboks and was very solid for them. And then you've got Warwick Kalant at number 15, who is... I'm a massive Kalant fan. I think, he's one of those players, he's got X Factor. And it's X Factor something that's not always been very abundant within South Africa. We always talk about New Zealand and how the players with X Factor, your Damian McKenzie's, your Bowden Barrett's, they're sort of X Factor players. And it's been difficult sometimes for players with X Factor to really find their place within South Africa. And you saw that while Kalant sometimes struggled at the Bulls. But the switch down to Stormers hopefully will release that, and we're really starting to see a bit of improvement. He's quite a clever player. His kicking game's come a long way, and he's definitely a future number 15 for the Springboks. And with Billy Leroux getting on in years, Kalant has got the opportunity to make that position his own, but he needs to continue putting in good performances. And then on the bench, if you look at two big names there, I think Oscar Ntebeni, obviously back to playing some of his better rugby, as well as Namaklaba, who is also a very good loose forward, works very hard, nice and physical, and he's been rightly picked out as a potential future Springbok as well. So two players there, which I think are really worth watching, and a decent bench, quite a lot of youth, and not a lot of experience coming off the bench. But I think that's nice. We want to see some youngsters. We want to see sort of the next generation. There is so much experience in that starting lineup, with the exception of the likes of Rikus Pretorius, Dan du Plessis, Juan Augusta, Salmarat. It's quite an experienced team. The front row's been around there. I mean, look, Herschel Yankees is still quite young, so is Damien Willemse. But Damien Willemse has played 2-3 seasons now of Super Rugby type thing. So there is quite a lot of experience in that team itself. And the team that they are up against is a almost unchanged side. For the Lions, and I think it's frustrating. It's actually kind of setting that they haven't tried to change more, because I just think that there are a lot of players that could be playing, could be adding a lot that aren't. But at the end of the day, I think the Lions have once again realized that the Stormers are going to have a big pack, and they've tried to match it. They've literally gone with sort of the biggest pack they can put together. Steve Satole, Jakob Asaki, and Kari Sadu will have their a big job lined up for them as they take on a front row. A lot of bulk in the locks between Marvin Orie and Willem Alberts. Willem Alberts is obviously very, very experienced, very big, doesn't quite get around the park as much as well or as easily as he could back in the day, but still brings a lot of physicality. And then a loose trio of Jaco Kriel, Vincent Chituka, and Len Massane. And I think I'd like to see more of Jaco Kriel this weekend. I think he struggled a bit last weekend to really sort of get into the game, so hopefully a big performance for him. Vincent Chituka, for me, is just getting better and better. He was everywhere last week. He was involved in the defense, involved in the attack. He's got a lovely offload game. Sometimes he almost needs to learn to hold it because a lot of people don't expect him to get the offload away, and he does, which sometimes can result in knock-on stuff like that. But he is a player that he won't just take contact. He'll always try to look to try and move the ball on or try and keep the attack going, which is nice to have. And he is working quite hard on the defense, so he's becoming quite a nice player. Len Massane as well, a very hard-working player. Nothing flash about him. He'll do the basics very well, and he'll do the hard yards. And then the player who came on and made a sensational difference, Maury van der Berg, gets a start next to Alton Jantjies. And what a game van der Berg had. He came on with Dylan Smith, who's unfortunately going to undergo the knife and will be out for a long period of time. But he came on last weekend and really put in a very good shift. And if he can match that, I think the Lions could hopefully form a nice sort of partnership with Alton Jantjies, who the general at number 10 will continue to try and lead from the front. You look at the back line, it's definitely not the strongest back line the Lions can put out. We're still waiting for Skorsan to come back into the team. I'd still like to see Gianni Lombard in there. I want to see the Similani as a non-playing reserve, which just frustrates me. I just don't understand why he's not playing. We saw how he wasn't backed earlier this year within the Lions setup, and once again he's not back. So if you look at the starting lineup, you've got Ras Makhane, Dan Creel, Birger Oudendal, Jumbo Lengo, and EW Verleun. I thought EW Verleun had a all-right game last weekend. Nothing particularly sensational. Made a couple of errors, made a couple of good runs, got a decent boot on him, but it did let him down for that one penalty where he missed out. Jumbo Lengo as well scored a try, but wasn't very X factor. Made a couple of basic mistakes, and he needs to put in a bigger performance. And for me, the centres had a very quiet game last weekend. Look, there wasn't a lot of running rugby, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity, but they're going to have to play for me very, very well because I just don't understand why Similani is not getting a start. He is a future Springbok. He's one of the most exciting players with ball in hand, probably the most attacking-minded outside centre in the country. And he struggled with defence, but keepers, he's exciting when he's got the ball in his hand. And I was really hoping to see him this weekend, and it doesn't look like we are. The other players to look out for, Dylan Smith has a big point to prove. CT Satole seems to sort of leapfrogged him a bit, so he would like to come in. Achibadai Mani is a player who has all the physical attributes to become a really good player, but just is sort of struggling to find that consistency, especially on defense. Ross Kinnear comes back, Springbok capped. He's back in the setup, which it'll be good to see. He's found himself a bit on the periphery, but finds himself back in the mix. And Gianni Lombard, again, one of the most exciting youngsters in the country. Really played well in the Springbok showdown. Covers fly half, covers fullback very nicely. Hope to see a more extended run out for him this weekend. So it's a very good, it's a good matchup. Favourites have to be the Stormers. I think overall they've got more experience, probably more quality. But you can't write the Lions off. At the end of the day, it's one of those teams where unfortunately as a Lions supporter they've been very up and down, very inconsistent, and you don't quite know what Lions team's actually going to pick up. So it could either be a Lions team that's going to take the game by the scruff of its neck and pitch up, or sometimes they can make really basic errors and struggle. I think changes, as I said, I'd like to see Similani in at outside centre. I'd obviously like to see Skorsan back. I don't know what's happening with Manuel Ras. I'm assuming he's injured as well. I'd also like to see him back in the mix. He's one of those wings that looks for work. If he's not getting a lot of opportunity out wide, he'll come inside and he'll look for work. So I quite like that in a player. Rue Andre is also a non-traveling sub, Springbok capped as well. So nice experience there. But I just think it's not quite the strongest lineup, and I think the back line is not bad, but I just think we need a bit more X factor. I think we've gone with quite a safe team, and you've got Alton Jantjies, who is somebody that likes to play with a lot of flair, and I would like to see some more sort of flair players around him. Birger and Dan Creel are very solid players. They work hard, they're very big, and stuff like that, but they're not that creative, not that sort of X factor that you get with Similani, that you get with Lombard. And I'm hoping that what we can try and do as the Lions, and it would have been nice to even have Similani on the bench, because the Lions are opted with just two players on two backline players, much like the Springboks did, is that they can try and wear down the Stormers, or at least match the physicality. And as the game sort of reaches its end, you can put on a Gianni Lombard and try and sort of run them off their feet. But I really am very disappointed in the fact that Similani is not in the action. So it should be a very good game. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So jump in the comments. Let me know what your predictions are. Let me know what you think of the game. What are some important things to keep out for? What are some big players to watch? Let me know in the comments. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully a much nicer game to watch and something that's a bit more Yeah, appealing and a bit more watchable on the eyes, but hopefully a much better and more clinical performance by all the teams this weekend as we head into the second round of Super Rugby Unlocked. Keep your eyes locked on the channel for reviews as well as all the latest news and stuff like that. Please do try and consider subscribing. Really do appreciate all the support. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the rugby years to come, and I will chat to you very soon.